the reason I was so keen to take it on was because the words are so well known, in that you've read them so many times and had them read to you so many times, and that because the words are a narrative and they say what's created at what time, but I'm sure that everybody reads those words or hears those words and has their own idea about what's actually happening. And what is a firmament? What does it mean when you separate waters above from waters below? How does that work? And I love the fact that everybody will hear these and visualize them in completely different ways. The creation series was just my take on what I see in my own mind when I read those words. So the original one, the Let There Be Light day, the first day, that was probably the most challenging, but it's turned out to be my favorite because there was so little there. There's separating light from darkness. And so what I saw was, a big bang, a firework. When I started sketching this, you just start off with this explosion and the rays coming out from the central source. And then it sort of starts to coalesce into a pattern. So you have the arches coming round and this almost flower-like explosion in the middle. And the light coming out of the darkness, so the clouds below, and almost like the archway rising up out of these obscuring clouds. Day 2 was the creating the firmament, the sky in the midst of the waters. And I had no idea how to do that until I was in the round reading room at the British Museum. And I looked up, and you see the way the dome is done. And it has this wonderful pattern of windows and arches. And the moment you see that, you think, actually, that's a firmament, or that's my firmament, for the way the Day 2 works. And those two are a little bit different from the rest of the series because they are so patterned, in that there's very little there that's a picture of a thing. Whereas when you get into days 3, 4, 5, 6, you finally manage to get your teeth into things that actually exist. So day 3 is plants, and creating the land in the middle of the water and creating the plants. And suddenly you have freedom to go and draw plants and draw flowers and draw land and water being separated from the land. So it's almost very liberating, and suddenly you have things that you can show to people and display. And the same thing goes with day 4, the sun and the moon. You've got a big sun, a big moon, wonderful things that are, and I guess for day 4 you can go back a bit to abstract pattern, because the sun and the moon, there's not that much there in terms of reality, so you can go a bit back to pattern and decoration. But then for days 5 and 6, so 5 is fish and birds and 6 is creatures, you are able to then go back to a more representational graphic style. The Victoria and Albert Museum, which is where I'm living at the moment, is just down the road from me. That is, you can't fail to come out from that without at least a whole brain full of ideas. Especially if you go up to the higher floors when you have the porcelain galleries, you just wander and see, just let everything seep into your brain, and there will be a lot of things that do come out of that. There were a couple of designs I did based on the Willow pattern, which basically came from a day spent in the porcelain department, because it's this wonderful theme that you get so much porcelain based on this Willow pattern. And there's a wonderful story behind it about the 2 star-crossed lovers that die and their spirits are reborn as the birds in the pattern. And you see this design that's been done by so many potters and done in a very different way each time, but the same basic elements. And you feel like there's this wonderful heritage in that design that's come down through hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's almost like an honor to do something with it yourself and to make a needlepoint out of it, which hadn't been I'm not aware that it had been done before. It's quite easy when you're doing the composition. What's difficult is because the wool that we use for the kits is wonderful, but there's not every single shade there available. So I spent a lot of time with the drawings, with some samples of porcelain, with various swatches of wool, kind of holding them up against the drawings and holding up against the paintings that are produced to see what was the exact sort of cobalt blue that would have been used at the time. I'll usually come with a fairly settled idea of how I want the whole thing to look, which is often completely different from how it actually ends up looking. So I'll usually start with a rough sketch on a piece of paper as to the main figures in the process or the main design elements. And then what I'll do is I'll sometimes go to a watercolor or a quick gouache, but sometimes I'll go straight onto the computer and start blocking out areas with color. And that works for me, because if you get the screen set up with 1 pixel per stitch, you can see how the whole thing's going to come in, and you can block in colors very, very quickly and make precise changes. And then often what I'll do is I'll print the whole thing out and paint over the top, and then put it back onto the computer and see how that works. It is quite a challenge to come from illustration where you could use whatever color in the box you like, mix anything up, and if you want to change the formats, go bigger, you just go bigger. So going from that to a format where you have 150 by 150 stitches, 12 to 16 colors or more if you can get away with it, it does really make you concentrate on what makes the design, because you have to take everything that isn't necessary, you take out, and what you're left with is hopefully the core of what you want to say with that. It's very interesting actually. One of the things it reminds me of, it almost is something like haiku, where the limitations of the format make you strip everything down to its bare essentials, and what's left you play with and hope that you're able to say what you want to say with that.